Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out, and the best way to do so is through email. And also, comment on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. And give response there. All right, so I'm pretty much on all the podcast platforms, so it won't be too hard to find me. And let's get right into the topic of choice here. So, again, with the theme of fashion for this month, I'm going to focus in on the reality television show, Project Runway. Now, I'm going to give my thoughts, and then I'm going to end on with some facts about it and give thoughts on that. Here we go. Okay, so I actually sat down and rewatched some of Project Runway here. And Project Runway ran for a long time. Ran from 2024 to about almost to COVID times, and then also some spinoffs and so forth. So that's a wow, and that produced a lot of episodes. And so when it comes down to the aspects of talking about fashion in a reality sense, you take those things with a grain of salt, because in itself, it's not actual reality. It's supposed to be relying on stereotypes of what you would expect something to be. And so you don't quite get the aspects of the ins and outs of what the life is, or what it's like, or just to get a educational point of view from it. You don't get that. You get, even though they say it's not scripted, you get scripted functionality of a concept. Now, even though they have contestants that are actual fashion designers or so forth, or they run boutiques, or they have their own fashion companies, it's still, missing the mark about the aspects of the honesty of it. It's relying heavily on drama, ratings, and so forth. Now, it's quite interesting with the aspects of the designers, and the fact that is one of the reality situation. When it started out, that was the honest take about it. So, for instance, there was a particular fashion designer from my hometown here, Houston, Chloe Dow. I believe I'm pronouncing her name right here. But she has a nice boutique. It's couture, you can say couture, and it particularly focuses on women's fashion. And so, people like her, and there's countless others giving their stories and their takes about their input. Excuse me, I'll be right back. All right, giving their take and their input really helps to balance out the aspects of, you're supposed to be suspending your belief, so to speak, when it comes to the reality of the situation. Here, pun intended. And so, yeah, that's nice. That's that. But also, at the same time, the aspects of textile and how you transform things in itself is an art form too. And they showcase that a lot of times in the aspects of what they were asked to do and the assignments that they were given. Now, so me sitting down and watching these episodes, you really get a sense of how the aspects of design and fashion is really relevant into having a little capsule of time, of history. So what do I mean by that? I mentioned it, that fashion models in itself reiterate the aspects of a place and time, which goes along the way with history. And so the way that something is designed is reflective of that certain time period too. So, for instance, when Project Runway first started, so we're getting into the era of the early 2000s here. And so in the early 2000s, it was a very interesting mix of transforming futuristic attire with what was done and what was going on in the 90s and translating that for a new generation, a new era of young people. And then not only just young people, just different age groups and so forth. Just translating that for, what would somebody, what would be different or what would be unique to wear in this time era. And so the designers that they chose, the either Heidi Klum or the whole team or the producers, and I'll get to that. That's quite interesting that the particular producers who were for this television show were. And, it was a team cultivating all these decisions here. And so with that, these particular designers executed the elements of that time's wear with each season that went on. And in the early seasons, they really were had that pulse on the button with tapping into the ideas of music, industry, and image, with taking it amongst themselves. Hey, we are a reality show. We're going to use our platforms to not only have a competition about music and fashion, right, with having this particular artist to dress her, but we're also going to help with the aspects of promoting her music as well. So there was a particular artist, up-and-coming artist, and she had a unique style. And her unique style was the aspects of something eclectic, to where it would, encourage the designers to come out of their comfort zone if they're not used to designing a certain way. So what I mean by this is this aspects of, she was, pop punk, right? And then, but she also had that Victorian sort of punk futuristic style. And so, it was some designers that weren't used to that kind of tailored look, and some were. And so this, hold on, I'm sorry, my throat. I'll be right back. And as I said, some were. And so this encouraged the opportunity to, again, like a petri dish here, to activate drama attention here for ratings, because some designers were saying, well, I don't sew like this, I don't do like that, I don't do that, I don't alter that way, and so forth. Some were, it was really meant for them, and they were able to flourish in in this particular competition. And this also was showcasing for the show to showcase what particular leadership each designer had. And so that was a noticeable concept of the aspects of this particular reality show. Now, Heidi Klum being chosen to be the center around, and it would be the face and the voice, particularly for Project Runway, and then also with Marc Jacobs and the resigning editor of Elle magazine, was also a ground in reality of the situation of the importance of brand and image with fashion. So, starting with Heidi Klum. Now, Heidi Klum, as I mentioned with models here, she was in the wave of the aspects of the big boom of models being a household name in the 90s. Now, with her particular style, she was labeled as the body she had coined herself in the industry. So what does that mean? The way that she was particularly, not in a sense of being, full figured. The way her silhouette and the way she walked and graced the runway, it was very noticeable the way her body looked. And that translated a lot to where she became part of the second wave of even more noticeable part of the second wave of models being a household name by being a part of the Victoria's Secret fashion runway show. And so that was her house of realm of a particular look where, with the angel wings and wearing intimate wear like bras, panties, and so forth. And so you had a very sensuous, but also a very sleek, athletics, bringing athleticism to the arena of modeling. Because there was a other model, I'm trying to think of her name, but I can't recall it. But anyhow, she spoke and she talked about it. She's an American model. And she said that when she became a fashion model, like around the times of the 90s and the 2000s, at the time, there was not a lot of place for her because they were looking for models for a particular waif look, like the Twiggies, the Kate Mosses, and so forth. And so she, came from a background of athleticism. She was, if I'm not mistaken, she was played sports and so forth. And so she changed the imagery of the look of a model, where very form-fitting, very toned, instead of looking like emaciated, so to speak. And so that translated a lot with models who fit that sort of particular mystique. Now, Gisele Bündchen was very petite, is very petite, so is Heidi Klum. But they both, the common denominator between the two of them, between all three women here that I'm speaking of, that their tone was, that the body and the way that they look was very athletic and very, even more in shape here, to where it was suitable for them to be a part of that brand. And so Marc Jacob and so Ellie, the editor-in-chief of Ellie, they were around it's different, but they were in the same place as Heidi Klum, with emphasizing how important image and fashion go hand in hand in this industry. They gave their insights and they gave their point of view as well. And they also were there to structure the competitors, the designers, and new directions. Now, I'm going to end on this, and then I'm going to get into some facts here and wrap it up with the facts. Now, it's all AI-generated responses, and so you take this stuff with a grain of salt, but I'm just going to give my spin on it. I think the AI-generated response is a little bit, give an overall survey, and I found one particular article, and I think I'm going to, include that too. But here we go. So, Harvey Weinstein here, a little bit, did you know fact, was a producer along, if I'm not mistaken, also his brother too. And so, that little tidbit and that note leaves a certain air about itself in this day and time. And so, knowing that, it's quite interesting, too, with the whole aspects of being associated with fashion being associated with seediness. Now, why is it this is something that goes hand in hand with this industry? It clues into the aspects a lot about where does the ethics and moral compass goes in with when we go into industries like this. And so this spoils and ruins the ideas and the aspects of what fashion can implement and bring to a culture for its value here. So, also, you asked the question too, was this. Now, when it came out that Harvey Weinstein was doing all these things, particularly, and then I even saw him at the fashion shows when they would present at New York Fashion Week, because that was their, ending credit for the competition to see who won or not. He was even sitting in the front row center, so he was very prominent in his presence in that show. And so another question here, going back to it, why was it when all these allegations came out, why was he just allowed to do things like this? Now, there's one thing saying, let boys be boys. But if you actually have the foreground to say, well, let boys be boys isn't always the best concept. If you actually believe that, then why let it happen? And so it is also quite interesting that, too, Heidi Klum was speaking out against, excuse me, hold on. Heidi Klum was speaking out and saying, how wrong it is and everything and so forth, and that she had no way of knowing about these sort of things. But, that's one of those things that is very true. You can be associated with someone who's doing things that are nefarious, but you don't necessarily know what's going on because you're in your own other realm. But at the same time, you take those notions with a grain of salt. So with that said, I'm going to get right into the aspects of talking about the Project Runway show here. All right, so sorry about that. All right. All right, so Project Runway is an American reality television series that premiered on Bravo on December 1st of 2004. Focusing in on fashion and design. Created by Ellie Holzerman. So Ellie Holzerman, the creator-in-chief of Elle magazine. So the show features inspiring fashion designers competing in weekly challenges that test their creativity, technical skills, and ability to work under timeline material. I don't think that's correct, but I think that Ellie Holzerman is, but double check me on that. All right, so material and the thematic constraints, which heighten drama for the sake of drama. That's pretty much what that means. So the competition uses progressive elimination, reducing the initial group of designers down to 3 or 4 finalists who then created a full fashion collection to present at New York Fashion Week. Now, the show had aired on multiple networks throughout its history, Bravo being one from 2004 to 2008, and then again from 2019 to 2023. And a new life on Lifetime, not Lifetime Network, from 2009 to 2017, and then again on Freeform, and recently as 2025. So as of 2025, Heidi Klum has returned as host, having previously hosted from 2004 to 2017. And 2018, following the bankruptcy of the Weinstein Company, the show returned to Bravo, with Klum and mentor Tim Gunn departing to co-host, making the cut on Amazon Video. Carly Kloss succeeded Klum as host, and Christine Siriano replaced Gunn as a mentor. Now, Christian Siriano, he was a competitor early on in the seasons of Project Runway and actually won. It's quite interesting that he became a host to replace the Tim Gunn character, because in himself he had that similar characteristic mystique as Tim Gunn, so it makes a lot of sense. So the judging panel has evolved over time. So current judges include Nina Garcia was the editor of, or is the editor of what, how that ever goes, of Elle magazine. Now, this Ellie Holzerman is a completely different person, so I redact that. Sorry about that. All right, so the judging panel has evolved over time, as I said, and so Brandon Maxwell, which is a high fashion designer here, and particularly designing with very sultry looking evening wear for women. So, all right, and Elaine Willworth is again with Christian Siriano serving as mentor. So past judges have included Michael Kors, Zach Posen, Rachel Roy, and Law Roach. All right, so two big hitters, Michael Kors and Zach Posen, in their own right in the fashion world. All right, so the winner of each season receives $100,000 to launch their own design line, a feature in Marie Claire magazine, and a mentorship opportunity with additional prizes such as a new car in recent seasons. So the series has produced over 250 episodes across 21 seasons. It has inspired more than 30 international adaptations of spin-offs here, and has helped launch the careers of notable designers such as Christian Serino and Leanne Marshall. The show has also received critical acclaim, including a Peabody Award in 2008 for its ability to encourage, inform, enlighten, and entertain through the reality competition format. Now, challenges have included creating garments from non-traditional materials such as edible food items, grocery store products, plants, and even party store supplies, as well as designing for celebrities for corporate brands like Banana Republic and Macy's being one of them, or both of them being examples. So the designers are typically based in New York because New York is the bedrock of fashion. So that goes without saying, having this filmed in New York. With filming locations including Parsons Schools of Design and the Garment District throughout the show, they moved to LA because LA is one of the other forces of fashion here for season 6 before returning back to New York permanently. All right, so I am going to get into another little tidbit here about Project Runway. All right, so let's get into, let's see. All right, so this is from Business Insider, and it's entitled 13 Things You Probably Didn't Know About Project Runway. All right, so it was written by Kristen Renee. All right, so, and it was originally written December 1st of 2023. So the cast doesn't have access to things like the internet or television while filming. So according to the 2013 interview with the AV Club, producer Sarah Ray said contestants don't have access to the internet during filming. This is what she's quoted as saying, we want all of their inspirations to come from the things we leave for them and what they can see. We do not want any outside influences to sway what they're being inspired by or what their emotional state is, she said. She went on to say that while driving around New York City, contestants can see news on billboards or hear of current events, but the producers try to balance it so it does not affect them in a negative way. And also, this goes without saying, too, about how they reiterated this a lot of times in the seasons, that there are particular rules that we do not want you to cross. So particularly with Tim Gunn, and one of the competitions brought it to their attention that it was a contestant here who had something like an instructional book about different techniques, and he was looking at it, and that was from what I remember, that was a means for him being off of the competition. It was, one of those things here, which is okay. And it's just one of those things where they have those rules, and then it's, if somebody can't reference things like that, that's, to each his own. So Mood Fabrics closes to the public when the designers shop on the show. And that makes a lot of sense that these public, real places have to be shut down. Also to not have, not to disrupt the suspension of belief, too, with the show, the flow of the show, but also with these people who don't want to be filmed with, being sued for that, grounds for that. And then also with not disrupting other people's day-to-day lives. So it just makes a whole lot of sense all the way around here. So the same interview with the AV Club shared that the popular fabric store closes for the contestants. We have a very close long-term working relationship with the movie, and we make sure we're posted on their schedule so we don't have to close too early. Tim Gunn said he hated season 14 of the show and he called it lackluster. So why is that? So Tim Gunn was a mentor and a producer on Project Runway for many years, and he has a least favorite season. In a 2015 interview with Entertainment Weekly, Gunn said this: "I'm telling you, and I haven't said this very much, I hated season 14. I hated it. I felt that other than a couple of designers, they weren't working up to their potential. The whole thing was lackluster." He went on to say that he felt that season 14 contestants were not hungry enough and that the judges did not offer valuable, constructive feedback to the designers. A filming day on Project Runway can last up to 18 hours. So if you think the designers are being snippy with one another, it's probably because of the difficult schedule and contestants filming throughout the production of the season. Season 2 contestant Diane Ng told New York Magazine The Cut in 2009 that the designers are filmed for 18-hour days, and the days are often woken up with camera crews looming over them. Ray confirmed in her interview with the AV Club that the shooting and the work schedule for Project Runway is as grueling as it sounds. She said that the designers work up into 11 p.m. or 12 a.m., and most of them are up working before 5 a.m. A few people who have worked on Project Runway said that winning doesn't necessarily make designers famous in the fashion industry. In a 2015 interview with Paper Magazine, Season 4 designer Jack McEnroth said that despite the show's public reputation as a driving force in the fashion industry, most of the contestants don't go on to be successful designers. Most people just go back to their old careers and continue to struggle. Fashion design is a cutthroat business. Well-established designers go bankrupt right and left. And quite honestly, the fashion industry frowns on Project Runway and doesn't take the designers very seriously, he said. Former guest judge Terry Agnes also expresses that the Project Runway renters don't really get a leg up in the fashion industry after the show. She told the Washington Post in 2014 one of the reasons the show peered was its failure to do what it claimed it would. See, there you go. The aspects of not actually living up to the promise of the quote-unquote contract. So sometimes the show auctions off designers even if they're not completed. So what does this mean? Some of the clothes designers are showcasing that the clothes that the designer are showcasing on the show end up being sold on the Project Runway website. So season 7 winner Seth Aaron Anderson said at Fashion Week in El Paso, and he was talking to the El Paso press conference. So in a 201 that clothes produced by contestants. So, this is written kind of strange, but so what I understand is saying there was 201 clothes that was produced by the contestants, and they go up for auction immediately after the show. It's clearly stated that these may or may not be finished. Joke season 9 runner-up Joshua McClellan Cook. So Peer New York Daily News, in the past, some designers from the show have gone up for auction as it is. To ensure their creations are totally original, designers aren't allowed to use any sewing patterns on the show, as I was mentioning earlier. So Ray told the AV Club that the show limits the designer's supplies to help ensure everything it created is original. We do not want them relying on other people's designs or other material, and we do not want anyone to have an unfair advantage, so we limit their resources. The Runway show and judging process can take 6 or even 7 hours to film. Although the Runway show judging and elimination typically only takes around 10 minutes of each episode, the entire process takes much longer, according to Ray. So the producer told the AV Club from Runway show to elimination is about 6 or 7 hours. There are breaks in between to move cameras and stuff, but it takes about 7 hours. A lot of thought goes into the supplies offered during the show, unconventional, and during the show when they are asking the contestants to do unconventional material challenges. One Project Runway episode that fans look forward to each season is the unconventional material challenges, during which the contestants must create stunning designs using items that otherwise wouldn't be used to create clothing. Ray told the AV Club that there is a team dedicated to curating the unusual materials for the challenge. We have a team of people whose main job is to sit around and come up with ideas, and they bring them to us, and we try to visualize all the different materials. Heidi Klum and Gunn left Project Runway after 16 seasons because they said they were being held back creatively. In 2018, the host Heidi Klum and mentor Gunn chose to lead Project Runway together to create a new design competition show with Amazon called Making the Cut. Pierre the Rap at Amazon's Television Critics Association panel earlier this year, the pair opened up about their decision to leave. They cited budgetary restrictions and the show's unchanging format as a primary reason why they chose to pursue other series. Designers don't get to go home immediately after being eliminated. After the designers are eliminated and sent to the workroom to clean up their space, they're not immediately sent home as portrayed on the show. Alright, so the finalists aren't the only Project Runway designers featured on New York Fashion Week. One of the final episodes of some seasons, a handful of finalists debut their collection at New York Fashion Week. However, in reality, many of the season's designers create and show collections in an effort to keep audience members from guessing who the actual finalists are. Cultural Map Houston reported that for the Season 8 finale, 10 of the season's 17 competitors created collections for Fashion Week. Ray told AV Club non-finalists ended also quoting Houston, my hometown here, Houston, and it's right, it's still the aspects of having their pulse on fashion too. All right, so non-finalists get the same amount of time and money as finalists. They also create the same number of looks for their collection. Otherwise, people may be able to figure out who is in and who is a decoy. All right, so with this said, this reaches the end, and I would also greatly like to know what you all think. So feel free to reach out. And I will address it again. Email and comments on YouTube is the best way. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.